The morning light of three suns cast strange shadows across the ruins as Captain Wu Jin stepped carefully through the broken stones. His boots crunched on crystal fragments that had once been windows in buildings older than most civilizations. The Zephyrian ruins always made him feel small, but today something felt different. "Captain, you need to see this," called He Jin from deeper in the structure. Her voice carried that special tone she used when she found something important. As the best navigation specialist in the Galactic Archaeological Survey, she had discovered more lost star charts than anyone else in their division. Wu Jin made his way through the rubble, past walls covered in symbols that no one could read anymore. The Zephyrians had been gone for 50,000 years, but their buildings still stood. Whatever they had built them from was stronger than anything the current galaxy could make. "What did you find?" he asked, joining He Jin in what looked like it had once been a library. Shelves carved from single pieces of stone reached up into darkness. Most were empty, but some still held strange objects that might have been books. He Jin pointed to a crystal cube sitting on a pedestal in the center of the room. It was perfectly clear, about the size of her head, and it was glowing with a soft blue light. "It started glowing when I walked in. I think it knows we're here." Taeho appeared from behind one of the tall shelves, his scanner beeping rapidly. The xenobiologist was always excited about new discoveries, but today his eyes were wider than usual. "The energy readings are incredible. This thing is still active after all this time. It might be some kind of data storage." So Young joined, them carrying her communication equipment. She was the youngest member of their crew, but she had a gift for languages that amazed everyone. "Should we try to activate it?" she asked. Wu Jin studied the crystal. In all his years exploring dead worlds, he had learned to be careful. Ancient technology could be dangerous, but they were here to learn about the past, and this might be their greatest discovery ever. "Do it," he said. So Young connected her equipment to the crystal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cube began to pulse with brighter light, and suddenly the air above it filled with tiny points of light. It was a star map, three-dimensional and incredibly detailed. "Amazing," whispered He Jin. "Look at the detail. They mapped thousands of systems." The map showed a large section of the galaxy, with trade routes marked in green light and inhabited worlds glowing in gold. Most of the systems were familiar, though the names were in Zephyrian script. But as they watched, the map began to focus on one particular region. "That's the outer rim," Taeho said. "Those are systems we've explored." But then the map showed something that made them all step back. In one small section, the lights changed from gold to deep red. Warning symbols appeared around several star systems, and the space between them was marked with text in multiple languages. So Young worked quickly, her translation programs running at full speed. "The warnings are in different languages," she said. "Zephyrian, Old Altarian, something that looks like ancient vegan script. They all say similar things." "What do they say?" Wu Jin asked, though he was starting to have a bad feeling about this. "The Devourer world," So Young read. "Where gods fear to tread. Here be beasts beyond imagination. The death system, turn back." "Captain, there are dozens of warnings, all saying the same thing. Stay away from this system." He Jin was running the coordinates through her navigation computer. "I know these coordinates," she said quietly. "This is the Sol system, the one in the galactic records marked as quarantined." Wu Jin felt his blood run cold. Every spacer had heard stories about the Sol system. It was famous throughout the galaxy, but not in a good way. It was the system that had produced humans. Humans were legend. They came from a world so dangerous that just living there had turned them into the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Other species told stories about them around campfires, the way ancient peoples had once told stories about monsters. They were said to be incredibly strong, impossible to kill, and completely without fear. "But that's impossible," Taeho said. "This map is 50,000 years old. Humans only made contact with the galaxy 300 years ago. How could the Zephyrians have known about them?" "Maybe they didn't know about humans," He Jin said slowly. "Maybe they knew about the world itself. about what it would do to anything that tried to live there. The crystal map continued to show details about the Sol system. The third planet was marked with so many warning symbols that they overlapped each other. Images appeared showing impossible creatures, beasts with rows of sharp teeth longer than Wu Jin's arm, flying monsters with wingspans wider than their ship, things with too many legs and venomous stingers. Look at this. So Young pointed to text appearing at the bottom of the display. Multiple expeditions attempted contact. None returned. Final entry reads, "The beasts there have learned to use tools. They hunt in organized packs. Recommend permanent quarantine. May the gods protect any soul who lands on that cursed world." Wu Jin stared at the warnings. Every species in the galaxy had similar stories about Earth and its inhabitants. The humans were said to come from a world where everything tried to kill everything else, where the very air and water were dangerous, where creatures fought constantly just to survive another day. And somehow something had learned to thrive there, something that eventually became human. "Captain," Hyojin said quietly, "the galactic records show that system as uninhabited. But we know that's not true. Humans live there. They've been living there for thousands of years. The question is," Taeho added, "what really happened? Did the dangerous creatures die out? Did humans somehow defeat them? Or what?" Wu Jin asked. "Or humans are the dangerous creatures the ancient maps warned about?" The crystal map began to fade as its power finally ran out after 50 millennia, but the coordinates remained burned in all their minds. The Sol system, Earth, the world that every ancient civilization had marked as too dangerous to approach, the world that had created humans. "We have to go there," Wu Jin said finally. "This could be the greatest archaeological discovery in history. We could finally learn the truth about the legendary Death World." His crew looked at him with a mixture of excitement and fear. They were scientists and explorers, but they were also people who had grown up on stories about the terrifying world that had produced humanity. "Are you sure, Captain?" So Young asked. "The warnings are pretty clear. Even 50,000 years ago, everyone knew to stay away." Wu Jin looked at the fading crystal one last time. They had spent their careers studying dead civilizations, learning about peoples who had been gone for millennia. But this was different. This was a chance to understand one of the greatest mysteries in galactic history. "Set course for the Sol system," he said. "It's time to see what all those ancient civilizations were so afraid of." The journey to the Sol system took 2 weeks in hyperspace, but it felt much longer to everyone on the Stellar Dawn. Wu Jin had sent their discovery report to Galactic Command, but the response had been swift and clear. "Do not approach the quarantined system. Return immediately for debriefing." Instead, Wu Jin had ordered communication silence and continued toward Earth. His crew trusted him, but he could see the worry in their eyes. They were about to visit the most feared world in galactic history, against direct orders from their superiors. "Dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds, Hyojin announced from the navigation station. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she worked the controls. The main screen showed empty space, then suddenly filled with stars as they returned to normal space. In the distance, a yellow star burned steadily, surrounded by several planets. The third one was blue and white, covered in swirling clouds. "There it is," Taeho whispered. "Earth, the Death World." Their sensors immediately began going crazy. Warning alarms sounded throughout the ship as the computer tried to process what it was detecting from the blue planet below. "Report," Wu Jin ordered, though he had to raise his voice over the alarms. "Captain, the sensors are overloading," Hyojin said, working frantically at her station. "The biological readings from that planet are beyond anything in our databases. The computer keeps saying error because it can't believe what it's detecting." Taeho was staring at his screen with his mouth open. "Captain, according to these readings, that planet has more dangerous life forms than the rest of the galaxy. Combined, large predators in the water, massive creatures on land, flying hunters in the air, and the diversity is impossible. No world should be able to support this many different types of dangerous life." So Young was picking up signals from throughout the system. "Captain, there are warning beacons everywhere, old ones from dozens of different civilizations. They're all broadcasting the same message in different languages. Stay away. What do they say exactly? Wu Jin asked. Most of them are pretty similar, So Young replied, her translation programs working overtime. Here's one from the Altarians. Warning to all travelers. The third planet in this system contains creatures of unprecedented savagery. They hunt in coordinated groups and show no mercy to outsiders. Several of our scout ships have been lost. Recommend avoiding this system entirely. Here's another one, she continued, from the Centaurian Empire. The beasts on the blue world have mastered fire and metalworking. They create weapons specifically designed to kill. Our diplomatic mission was destroyed before we could even land. These creatures are beyond reasoning with. Teho looked up from his station. Captain, I'm detecting massive cities on the surface. The life forms down there aren't just dangerous animals, they're organized. They've built a civilization. The humans, Hyojin said quietly. The ancient warnings weren't about animals. At all. They were about humans. Wu Jin studied the peaceful-looking blue world on their screen. It was beautiful, with white clouds and blue oceans, green and brown continents that looked almost inviting. It was hard to believe this was the world that had terrified every major civilization in galactic history. Sir, Teho said, his voice tight with worry. I'm detecting their technology level. They have spacecraft, satellites in orbit around their planet. And Captain, some of those satellites are weapons. They could destroy us before we even know we're under attack. Are we being targeted? Wu Jin asked. Not yet, Hyojin replied. But their detection systems are very advanced. They know we're here. As if to prove her point, So Young's communication station suddenly came alive with incoming signals. Captain, we're being scanned. Multiple sources, very sophisticated technology. And Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. From the humans, Wu Jin asked. Yes, sir. Multiple languages, including some we recognize. Should I put it through? Wu Jin looked at his crew. They had come this far. Do it. The transmission was clear and strong. A human voice spoke in perfect galactic standard, though with an accent none of them recognized. Unknown vessel, this is Earth traffic control. Welcome to the Sol system. We've been monitoring your approach and noticed you seem to be having some technical difficulties with your sensors. We're prepared to offer assistance if needed. Please, identify yourselves and state your intentions. The bridge fell silent. That was not what any of them had expected. The voice was polite, professional, even friendly. There were no threats, no demands for surrender, no warnings to leave immediately. Captain, So Young whispered, they're offering to help us. Teho was staring at his readings. That's impossible. Every historical record says humans are aggressive and dangerous. They're supposed to attack first and ask questions later. Maybe the stories were wrong, Hyojin suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. Or maybe this is how they hunt, Wu Jin said grimly. Lure their prey in close with friendly words, then attack. The human voice came through again. Unknown. Vessel, we're not detecting a response to our offer of assistance. Are you experiencing communication difficulties? We have ships standing by to help if your vessel is in distress. They want to send ships, Teho said, checking his sensors. Captain, I'm detecting several spacecraft approaching our position. Fast, heavily armed vessels. This is it, Wu Jin said, battle stations. Wait, So Young said, listening to her equipment. Captain, I'm picking up their internal communications. They're not discussing attack strategies. They're talking about rescue procedures and medical assistance. One of them just asked if we might need food or water. Food and water? Hyojin repeated. That doesn't sound like an attack. The human voice returned, and this time it sounded genuinely concerned. Unknown vessel, we're detecting elevated stress patterns in your ship's emissions. Are your crew members in danger? We're prepared to beam medical assistance aboard if you need help. They want to send doctors, So Young translated. Captain, these don't sound like the savage warriors from the ancient warnings. They sound nice. Wu Jin studied the sensor readings showing the approaching human ships. They were definitely armed, but they weren't moving in attack formation. If anything, they looked like they were preparing for a rescue operation. "Captain," Tejo said slowly, "what if the ancient civilizations got it wrong? What if they misunderstood what they were seeing?" "How do you misunderstand getting attacked by savage beasts?" Wu Jin asked. "I don't know," Tejo replied, "but these humans don't sound savage. They sound worried about us." The communication channel crackled again. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Ji-hoon of the Earth Defense Force. We've been trying to establish communication for several minutes now. If you're having technical difficulties, we can provide assistance. If you're here for peaceful contact, we'd be honored to welcome you to Earth. We've been hoping for visitors for a very long time." "Hoping for visitors?" Hyojin repeated. "Captain, what kind of savage death world inhabitants hope for visitors?" Wu Jin made a decision that would change everything. "So Young, open a channel." "Channel open, sir. Earth traffic control. This is Captain Wu Jin of the exploration vessel Stellar Dawn. We are scientists from the Galactic Archaeological Survey. We've come to your system to investigate historical records. We're not sure what to expect." "Captain?" "Wu Jin?" came the immediate reply, and the human voice sounded genuinely excited. "This is incredible. First contact with an alien archaeological expedition. Sir, you've just made history. We'd be thrilled to assist with your research in any way possible. Would you be interested in visiting our planet? We have experts who would love to share information about Earth's history." The bridge fell silent again. This was definitely not what the ancient warnings had prepared them for. "Captain," So Young said quietly, "I think we may have seriously misunderstood what happened to those ancient expeditions." 3 hours later, the Stellar Dawn was in orbit around Earth, and Wu Jin was still trying to process what had happened. The humans hadn't attacked them. Instead, they had guided them to a safe orbit, provided them with updated star charts of the local area, and even offered to refuel their ship. "Captain," Hyojin said from her station, "I'm receiving detailed landing coordinates. The humans have prepared a landing site for us near what they call Seoul. They say it's one of their major cities." "Are you sure it's safe?" Tejo asked nervously. "What if this is still some kind of trap? Maybe they're just more clever than we thought." So Young looked up from her communication station. "Commander Ji-hoon has been telling me about Earth's history. Captain, I don't think these are the savage beasts the ancient civilizations warned about." "What do you mean?" Wu Jin asked. "Well, he mentioned that his grandmother Sun-hee will be cooking dinner for us. He asked about our dietary requirements because he wants to make sure the food won't make us sick. Captain, what kind of dangerous predator worries about whether their guests might have food allergies?" That was a good point. Wu Jin had to admit that the behavior they were seeing didn't match any of the ancient warnings. The humans seemed genuinely excited about meeting them, not like they were planning to eat them. "There's something else," So Young continued. "Commander Ji-hoon mentioned that they have a first contact protocol team. They've been preparing for this day for decades. They have people whose entire job is to make sure meetings with alien species go smoothly." "First contact protocol?" Tejo repeated. "They've been planning to meet other species peacefully?" "It gets better," So Young said. "He told me that one of their team members, Yu Jin, is a marine biologist. She studies the creatures in Earth's oceans. When I mentioned that our sensors detected dangerous aquatic predators, she got excited and asked if we wanted to see some of them up close." "See them up close?" Hyejin asked. "Why would anyone want to get close to dangerous ocean predators?" "That's what I asked," So Young replied, and Commander Ji-hoon laughed. He said Yu Jin loves sharks and has been swimming with them for years. He said she'll probably want to show us how gentle they really are. Wu Jin stared at the blue planet below them. Nothing about this made sense. According to every ancient record, Earth was full of deadly creatures that attacked anything that moved. But the humans were talking about swimming with these creatures for fun. "Captain," Tejo said slowly, "what if we've been completely wrong about this place? What if Earth isn't dangerous because of the creatures that live here, but because we misunderstood what those creatures were like?" "You mean the ancient expeditions got it wrong?" Wu Jin asked. "Maybe," Tejo replied. Think about it. If you landed on a planet and saw creatures with huge teeth and massive size, you might assume they were dangerous. But what if they were actually harmless? What if the savage attacks were just misunderstandings? Commander Ji-hoon's voice came through the communication system again. Captain Woo-jin, we have your landing site prepared. My grandmother Sun-hee is very excited to meet you. She's been cooking all day and wants to know if any of your crew are vegetarian. She's prepared both meat and vegetable dishes just in case. She's been cooking all day? So Young translated unnecessarily. Captain, his grandmother has spent an entire day preparing food for strangers she's never met. Does that sound like the behavior of a savage predator? Woo-jin had to admit it didn't. But 50,000 years of warnings couldn't all be wrong, could they? Commander Ji-hoon, he said into the communication system, we appreciate your hospitality, but we have to ask. Our historical records indicate that Earth is extremely dangerous. We've found warnings from multiple civilizations telling people to stay away from your world. Can you explain this? There was a pause. Then Ji-hoon's voice returned, and he sounded genuinely confused. Dangerous? Captain, I'm not sure what those records might be referring to. Earth has some dangerous wildlife, certainly, but nothing that can't be managed with proper precautions. We've been living here peacefully for thousands of years. What about the large predators? Taeho asked. Our sensors detected creatures in your oceans with massive teeth and incredible size. Oh, you mean the sharks and whales, Ji-hoon said, and his voice brightened. Yes, we have some impressive marine life, but Captain, whales are gentle giants. They eat tiny sea creatures, not people, and sharks are much more afraid of humans than we are of them. Yoo-jin has been studying them for years. She says they're beautiful and misunderstood. Misunderstood? Hyejin repeated quietly. What about the flying predators? So Young asked. Creatures with large wingspans that hunt. From the air? Birds? Ji-hoon sounded even more confused. Captain, most of our flying creatures eat insects and small fish. The largest ones eat fish and small mammals. I suppose some of our eagles are impressive, but they're not dangerous to people unless you threaten their nests. And the land predators? Woo-jin asked, feeling increasingly foolish. Well, we have some big cats in various parts of the world, Ji-hoon said. Lions, tigers, bears. But Captain, most of them avoid human settlements entirely. We've learned to coexist with them. In fact, many of them are protected species now. We work very hard to make sure they don't become extinct. Protected species? Taeho asked. You protect your predators? Of course, Ji-hoon replied, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Every species has a role in the ecosystem. Captain, I think there may have been some serious misunderstandings in those ancient records you mentioned. Would you be willing to come down and see for yourselves? I think you'll find Earth much more peaceful than your records suggest. Woo-jin looked at his crew. They were all staring at him with the same expression of amazement and confusion. There's one more thing, Commander Ji-hoon added. My grandmother Sun-hee lived through the Korean War in the 1950s. She's met people from all over the world, including former enemies. She always says that the best way to make friends is to share a good meal together. She's very much looking forward to meeting people from another world entirely. She lived through a war? Woo-jin asked. Yes, a terrible conflict, but Captain, that's exactly why she's so excited to meet you. She believes that people who were once enemies can become friends. She thinks meeting aliens will prove that anyone can get along if they just take the time to understand each other. So Young was translating even though everyone could understand. Captain, his grandmother survived a war and now wants to cook dinner for aliens because she believes former enemies can become friends. This doesn't sound like a death world, Hyejin said quietly. No, Woo-jin agreed. It doesn't. Captain Woo-jin, Ji-hoon's voice came through again. We have landing clearance ready whenever you are. And sir, welcome to Earth. We've been waiting. A long time to meet you? Woo-jin looked at the peaceful blue planet below them one more time. Whatever the ancient civilizations had encountered here, it wasn't what they were seeing now. Prepare for landing, he ordered. Let's go meet our hosts. And Captain, So Young added with a smile. Commander Ji-hoon asked if we like kimchi. The landing site was in a beautiful valley surrounded by green mountains. As the stellar dawn touched down, Woo-jin could see through the viewports that a small group of humans was waiting for them. They weren't carrying weapons. Instead, they seemed to be carrying flowers and what looked like containers of food. Captain, Taeho said, checking his sensors one final time. I'm not detecting any hostile intentions. Their body language suggests they're excited and maybe a little nervous, but definitely not aggressive. Well, Woo-jin said, taking a deep breath, let's go meet the legendary Deathworld inhabitants. The airlock cycled open, and Earth's air flowed into their ship. It smelled fresh and clean, with hints of growing plants and something that might have been food cooking somewhere nearby. Commander Ji-hoon was the first to approach them. He was tall for a human, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Behind him was an older woman, who had to be his grandmother, Sun-hee, and a younger woman with scientific equipment who must be the marine biologist Yu-jin. Captain Woo-jin, Ji-hoon said, bowing slightly in what Woo-jin recognized as a respectful greeting. Welcome to Earth. This is truly one of the greatest days in our planet's history. Sun-hee stepped forward and said something in what Woo-jin's translator identified as Korean. The device rendered it as, "Welcome to our home. Are you hungry? I have prepared many dishes." My grandmother wants to know if you're hungry, Ji-hoon translated with a smile. She's been cooking since dawn. She's made traditional Korean food but also some dishes from other cultures in case you prefer something different. Yu-jin stepped forward, practically bouncing with excitement. Captain, I can't believe you're really here. Commander Ji-hoon told me you detected dangerous marine predators in our oceans. I've been studying sharks for 15 years, and I would love to show you how amazing they really are. You want to show us sharks? Hee-jin asked carefully. Oh yes, Yu-jin replied enthusiastically. They're incredible creatures, perfectly evolved predators that have remained basically unchanged for millions of years. But Captain, they're not dangerous to humans unless we do something really stupid. I swim with them regularly for my research. You swim with predators? Taeho asked, his voice high with disbelief. Well, yes, Yu-jin said, looking confused by their reaction. How else would I study them? You can't understand an animal by just looking at it from far away. You have to observe them in their natural environment. Sun-hee said something else in Korean and Ji-hoon translated. Grandmother says we should eat first and talk about science later. She says hungry people can't think clearly. They followed their hosts to a nearby building that seemed to be some sort of community center. Inside, tables were loaded with more food than Woo-jin had ever seen in one place. The smells were incredible. Spicy, savory, sweet, all mixed together in a way that made his mouth water. This is amazing, So Young said, staring at the spread. How many people are you expecting to feed? Just us, Ji-hoon replied. But grandmother wanted to make sure we had enough. She says feeding people properly is the most important part of making new friends. As they sat down to eat, Sun-hee began placing food on their plates and talking in Korean. Ji-hoon translated as she spoke. She says she lived through the Korean War when she was young. It was a terrible time. People from different countries were fighting and killing each other. But she says she learned something important during that war. What did she learn? Woo-jin asked. Sun-hee continued speaking and Ji-hoon translated. She says she learned that people who seem like enemies are usually just people who don't understand each other yet. After the war, she made friends with people from countries that had been fighting Korea. She says that once you share a meal with someone and hear their stories, it's very hard to think of them as an enemy. She made friends with former enemies? Hye-jin asked. Many of them, Ji-hoon confirmed. In fact, one of her best friends is an old Japanese man named Kenji. His father fought against Korea during the war, but now our families celebrate holidays together. His grandchildren call her Korean grandmother. Yu-jin leaned forward excitedly. That's exactly what I discovered with sharks. Everyone thinks they're mindless killers because they have big teeth and they're predators. But when you actually spend time with them, you learn they're intelligent, curious creatures with complex social behaviors. Most shark attacks on humans are cases of mistaken identity. They think we're seals or fish. Mistaken identity? Taeho repeated. Absolutely, Yujin replied. Sharks don't hunt humans. We're not part of their natural diet. When they bite people, it's usually because they thought the person was something else or because the person did something that startled or threatened them. Like the ancient expeditions, So Young said quietly. Maybe the aliens who came here thousands of years ago startled the local creatures, or the creatures thought they were something else. Ji-hoon nodded thoughtfully. That would make sense. If aliens landed and immediately started acting defensive or aggressive, Earth's wildlife might have responded defensively too. But Captain, you have to understand. Most of our dangerous animals avoid humans completely. They don't want to fight us any more than we want to fight them. Sun-hee spoke again and Ji-hoon translated. Grandmother wants to know if you've ever had kimchi before. She says it's good for health and helps prevent sickness. As they ate, Yujin pulled out a tablet and began showing them videos. Look, here's footage from my last research dive. That's a great white shark, probably 4 meters long. On the screen, they could see Yujin swimming next to a massive creature with rows of sharp teeth, but the creature wasn't attacking. Instead, it seemed curious about the camera, swimming in lazy circles around the human. That's impossible, Taeho said. That creature could kill you easily. Probably, Yujin agreed cheerfully, but she has no reason to. I'm not threatening her, I'm not acting like prey, and I'm not in her territory during feeding time. She's just curious about what I am. You said she, Hyejin noticed. Oh yes, that's Scarlet. I've been studying her for 3 years now. She has a distinctive scar on her dorsal fin. She's actually quite gentle. Last year she had babies, and she brought them by to show me. Well, I like to think she was showing them to me. The apex predator showed you her babies? Woo-jin asked. Sharks are very good mothers, Yujin replied. They're much more complex than people give them credit for. Sun-hee said something else, and Ji-hoon translated with a laugh. Grandmother says Scarlet sounds like a good mother, and she wants to know if sharks like kimchi. As the evening went on, Woo-jin found himself relaxing despite everything he had been taught about Earth and its inhabitants. These humans weren't the savage beasts from the ancient warnings. They were curious, kind people who seemed genuinely excited to make new friends. Commander Ji-hoon, he said finally, I have to ask. Our records show that Earth has produced some of the galaxy's most feared warriors. Humans have a reputation for being incredibly dangerous in combat. Ji-hoon's expression grew serious. We can be dangerous when we need to defend ourselves or protect others, he said. But Captain, we prefer not to fight at all. Most humans spend their entire lives without ever being in a real fight. Then why do other species fear you? Maybe because they never stayed long enough to have dinner with us, Sun-hee said through Ji-hoon's translation. She smiled and added, something else. What did she say? So Young asked. Ji-hoon grinned. She says that anyone who's afraid of humans just needs to be fed properly. She thinks most problems in the universe could be solved with good food and people taking time to listen to each other. Looking around at the friendly faces, the incredible food, and the warm welcome they had received, Woo-jin was beginning to think Sun-hee might be right. 3 weeks had passed since the Stellar Dawn had landed on Earth, and Woo-jin could barely believe the reports he was sending back to Galactic Command. Each day brought new revelations that completely changed everything they thought they knew about the legendary Death World. Captain, you have to see this, Taeho called from where he was watching Woo-jin prepare for another dive with the sharks. They were at a coastal research station, and the marine biologist was about to demonstrate something that would have been unthinkable to any other species in the galaxy. Woo-jin was in the water with 3 large sharks, including Scarlet. But instead of attacking her, the sharks seemed to be playing. They swam in gentle circles around her, and one of them even let her touch its fin. How is that possible? Hyejin asked, watching in amazement. Woo-jin says it's all about respect and understanding, Taeho replied. She's learned their body language, their social behaviors, their needs. She doesn't act like prey or a threat, so they treat her as neither. But according to our sensors, those are apex predators, So Young pointed out. They are, agreed Commander Ji-hoon, who had become their constant guide during their stay. But apex predator doesn't mean mindless killer. It means they're very good at what they do, which includes knowing when something isn't worth attacking. When Yu-Jin emerged from the water, she was practically glowing with excitement. Did you see that? Scarlet brought her juveniles again. I think she's teaching them that humans aren't threats. She's actually helping with interspecies cooperation. A predator teaching cooperation? Wu Jin asked. Why not? Yu-Jin replied. Cooperation is a survival strategy too. Scarlet has learned that humans in her territory aren't competition for her food sources, and that we sometimes help injured marine animals. From her perspective, we're probably useful neighbors. That afternoon, Sun-hee took them to visit her friend Kenji, the elderly Japanese man Ji-hoon had mentioned. Woo-jin was curious to meet someone whose family had once been at war with Sun-hee's people. Kenji was in his garden, tending to vegetables and flowers. When he saw them approaching, his face lit up with the same warm smile they had seen on Sun-hee. So, these are our visitors from the stars, he said in heavily accented Galactic Standard. Sun-hee has told me all about you. She says you were worried we might be dangerous. We had heard stories, Woo-jin admitted. Kenji laughed, a sound full of genuine warmth. My grandfather told me stories about Koreans when I was young. Terrible stories about savage enemies who could not be reasoned with. But you know what I learned when I actually met Koreans? What? So Young asked. I learned that my grandfather's stories were about fear, not truth. Sun-hee and I discovered we both love growing vegetables. We both worry about our grandchildren and we both make excellent soup. It is hard to fear someone when you know they make good soup. Sun-hee laughed and said something in Korean. Kenji nodded and replied in Japanese, then switched to Galactic Standard for their benefit. She says the secret to peace is learning that everyone has the same basic needs: food, safety, people to care about. Once you understand that, differences become much less important. Is that why humans aren't afraid of their planet's predators? Hyojin asked. We are afraid, Kenji corrected gently. But we are respectfully afraid. We understand that a bear or a lion can kill us, so we don't bother them unnecessarily. But we also understand that they don't want to kill us unless we give them a reason. Most dangerous animals would rather avoid conflict. Like countries, Sun-hee added through Ji-hoon's translation. Most people don't want war. They want to live peacefully and take care of their families. But sometimes fear makes them think. Fighting is the only option. That evening, Yu-jin showed them documentary footage that completely changed their understanding of Earth's ecosystem. They watched humans swimming with whales, massive creatures that could easily kill them, but instead seemed curious and gentle. They saw researchers living alongside lions and wolves, studying their behavior without being attacked. This is impossible, Taeho muttered, watching a human researcher sitting peacefully next to a resting lion. That creature is a perfect predator. She is, Yu-jin agreed. But she's also a mother with cubs to feed. She's not going to waste energy fighting something that isn't threatening her babies or competing for her food. The researcher knows to stay downwind, move slowly, and avoid eye contact that might seem challenging. It's all about communication, Ji-hoon added. Most conflicts happen because of misunderstandings. When we learn to communicate properly, whether with other humans, with animals, or apparently with aliens, we can usually find ways to coexist. On their final night on Earth, Sun-hee prepared a special farewell dinner. The table was even more loaded with food than their first meal had been, and she had invited dozens of people from the local community to meet their alien visitors. Captain, Ji-hoon said as they sat down, Grandmother wants you to know something important. Sun-hee spoke in Korean, her voice serious but warm. Ji-hoon translated carefully. She says that when she was young, she thought the world was full of enemies. The war taught her to fear people from other countries, other cultures, other ways of thinking. But she says she learned that this fear was wrong. She learned that most people, no matter where they come from, want the same things she wanted. What things? Woo-jin asked. To live without fear. To have enough food. To see their children grow up safe and happy. To be respected by their neighbors. She says these are universal needs, and she thinks they might be universal even beyond Earth. Sun-hee continued speaking, and Ji-hoon's translation became even more important. She says the ancient expeditions to Earth failed because they came expecting monsters. When you expect monsters, everything looks monstrous. A defensive animal becomes a savage beast. A protective mother becomes a killer. A curious creature becomes a predator stalking you. But what about the warnings? So Young asked. 50,000 years of civilizations telling people to stay away? Maybe, Ji-hoon said thoughtfully. Those civilizations never tried to understand what they were seeing. Maybe they saw Earth's incredible diversity of life, including some genuinely dangerous creatures, and assumed the worst. Woo-jin nodded. Enthusiastically. That's exactly what happens with sharks. People see the teeth and assume they're monsters. But if you take time to understand them, you learn they're amazing, complex creatures that usually want nothing to do with humans. As the evening wound down, Woo-jin found himself thinking about the reports he would send to Galactic Command. How do you explain that the most feared world in the galaxy is actually full of people who want to feed you and show you their favorite animals? Commander Ji-hoon, he said finally, what would you want other species in the galaxy to know about? Earth? Ji-hoon translated the question for Sun-hee and she spoke for several minutes. When she finished, Ji-hoon smiled. She says she wants them to know that Earth's greatest strength isn't that we're dangerous. It's that we learned not to be dangerous unless we have to be. We learned that making friends is better than making enemies, that feeding someone is better than fighting them, and that understanding someone is better than fearing them. And she wants to invite them all for dinner, Ji-hoon added with a laugh. She says the galaxy would be a much more peaceful place if everyone just took time to share a good meal together. 2 days later, as the stellar dawn prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Woo-jin looked down at the blue planet one last time. The ancient maps had been right about one thing. Earth was full of beasts. But the most remarkable beast of all was the one that had learned to turn its claws into helping hands, its roar into welcome songs, and its hunting instincts into the drive to protect rather than destroy. Course laid in for home, Captain, Hai-jin reported. Before we go, Woo-jin said, send one more message to Earth. What should it say? So Young asked. Tell them thank you for the kimchi, and tell Sun-hee that she's right. The galaxy would be a much better place if more people took time to share a good meal together. As they jumped to hyperspace, Woo-jin was already planning his report to Galactic Command. The quarantine on Earth wouldn't be lifted because the planet had become safe. It would be lifted because the galaxy had finally learned what real strength looked like. It looked like Sun-hee offering food to strangers from another world, simply because she believed, that anyone could become a friend if you just took the time to understand them.